I'll call the school committee meeting of January 22, 2025 to order. Superintendent Ray, would you call the roll, please?
Michelle?
Here.
Lisa?
Here.
Marie?
Here.
Randy?
Here.
Marty?
Here.
John?
Here.
Megan is excused. Chad?
Here.
And Jeremy's present.
Very good. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excellent. Well, we get to start with a really great item, which is years of service for Rebecca Henry from the school committee. Becky served since 2019 with great distinction, and it's really wonderful to be able to honor her here tonight. And Jeremy, love to hear your thoughts and remarks, and then hear from Rebecca herself.
Yeah, when school committee members, I guess I'll call it, I think you retire or...
Retire.
I think that would be the name for it, I guess, for this. Just wanted to recognize
Give
our...
up. I'll call it give up. No, I'm just kidding.
honor Rebecca Henry. Give up is not the one. Who served on the Biddeford School Committee for 5 years. Rebecca was active and engaged member and served on several standing committees and ad hoc committees during her time. She was thoughtful, made many positive contributions, and when a new opportunity came along, it precluded her from serving on the school committee. She's missed by me, our staff, her colleagues on the board, but she's still serving Biddeford students and the community. And as we've done by tradition here in the city, both city side and school side, we recognize people with a chair with their names on it. And so I would like to recognize Rebecca for her years of service here on the board, and hopefully this will find a great place in your home next to a matching, something that's matching that will mean a lot to you. So thank you very much.
A little nerve-wracking to be on this side of the table, but I just wanted to thank all of you for being such a great team. I feel like we were able to make some really nice changes together, and really excited for our community to have such a strong board right now to keep moving things forward and supporting the schools. I really enjoyed my time, and I also want to thank the community for putting me in that position. It was a true honor, and I am really excited to have a chair that will match the chair that my dad got when he retired. So that's super special to me. And I don't really have much else to say on that count, but I am still very active in the school community. Love my position working for the Southern Maine Administrative Collaborative, and also trying to take part in some of the committees that are happening, or meetings that are happening, both here at the high school and at the middle school. So what I'd like to do is come back at another time and tell you more about those committees and some of the action points that we're moving forward with, because it's really exciting and great to get parents more involved. So thank you guys so much. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Becky. For the thoughts or comments, don't go too far, Becky. From the committee, any remarks? I tell you what, if Mandy, if you wouldn't mind, would you bring the chair up here? Can we do a little photo op? And Jeremy, maybe you can recreate handing the chair off, and maybe if we can all just stand up here. And you might, I don't know, be closer.
Here. Stand behind the table.
Okay. I don't know how this is going to work, but we'll try it.
We could get behind her after.
Do you wanna
and
do
a
that?
photo. Yeah.
Put her on the chair and we'll pick her up, yeah.
Can we do it like those fancy weddings and carry her around? Oompa?
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
You want to take one with her in the chair with us behind?
I think it'll be good. Thank you again. That's wonderful. And yeah, obviously, Becky, sad to see you go, but welcome, Chad. You're off to a great start, and we really appreciate all the hard work and your many contributions already and going forward as well. That takes us to item F, approval of last meeting's minutes.
So moved.
Second?
Moved by John, seconded by Marie. Any discussion? All those in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you. That takes us to the consent agenda. I have a number of appointments. Doris Kelly as bus aide, Daniel Geyer, bus aide, Stacy Ordway, BPS Ed Tech 2, Haley Bilbrey, Leadership Office, AP, Hannah Crozier, BPS Ed Tech 3, Roland Kisa, BPS Ed Tech 2, Taylor Fouth, BMS Assistant Coach Indoor Track, and some resignations, Caitlin Chisholm, Megan Brown, and Deidre Husser.
So moved.
Second?
Moved by John, seconded by Marie. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? And that is unanimous. Jeremy, that takes us to item H when you're ready.
Yeah,
Hear
good
the
evening.
ladies.
Have a bunch of different items to share tonight. First and foremost, just a reminder to families and kiddos as you drive to school in the morning time, you see kids waiting for buses. This is the week to bundle up, make sure the hat and mittens on. I think this morning as we were loading buses, we were like -8. And it seems to be, we have a few more days of that. During the month of February, we will participate in the Department of Education's Read to Me Challenge and encourage our community members to join us by reading to or with a child for at least 15 minutes. We ask people to snap a photo or a short video, 10 to 30 seconds, and post with your challenge to others to read aloud for 15 minutes to a child they know. Use the hashtag #ReadToMe and tag others. Parent resources were available in the principal's newsletter that came out. We had a couple of high school students recognized for their art achievement. Biddeford High School had 2 people who received a silver and gold key award, which is prestigious art and writing awards. BHS junior Savannah Matthews earned a silver key award for their mixed media painting, and BHS senior Niall Aldridge earned a gold key award for his pen and ink work and a portfolio key award for all 8 pieces of artwork he submitted. There's only 2 recipients of the portfolio gold key award in our region, and both will receive a scholarship to the Maine College of Arts and Designs and have a chance to win a $12,500 scholarship at the national level. And their work will be displayed February through March at the Maine College. So that's pretty exciting for our high school students. I want to say congratulations to Bryson Drake and Javid Joseph, who were our middle school spelling bee first and second place, and they'll compete at Massabesic Middle School on February 4th at 2:30. This Thursday and Friday at 6:30 p.m. in the Performing Arts Center, the Middle School Drama Club will perform Aladdin Jr., so if you get out, have an opportunity for that. On Friday the 24th from 4 to 5:30, the community is also invited to join our high school girls and boys hockey team at Westbrook Skating Rink for a fun evening of outdoor skating. They'll be down there, dress warm. It's going to be a cold night on that. We also just want to remind people that not only are we having an incredible basketball season for our boys and girls, but we're also having an incredible basketball season for our unified teams. This is an incredible group of athletes supported by coaches. Cheering squad promotes teamwork, inclusion, and spectators always leave those events with a big smile. Their schedule is posted on the athletic department website if you'd like to check out an upcoming game. Last Friday, the Center of Technology was awarded a $2,500 STEM Talent Pipeline grant for the We Work for Health to invest in STEM programs. During the presentation, 4 talented students shared their innovative projects and experience, including designing a joystick adapter for a wheelchair using 3D printing to meet the unique needs of community members. So just exciting thing that our vocational students are doing. Want to say thank you to those who supported the Cassidy Pettit Memorial Game earlier this month. The girls' BHS ice hockey team, in conjunction with other donors, was able to donate $2,400 to the My Place Teen Center. And then last week, we were notified by the Department of Education that we received 3 school buses for state funding replacement for the upcoming budget cycle. Just so that you know how that works, those are on 5-year leases. You have to pay the first year, and then the money comes back the next 5 years for those buses. So we'll see a little bit of an increase in that line for the 3 new buses, but that money comes back. And then on the budget side of things, we are starting the review process. I hope to have funding levels next week. One of the things I want to caution you guys is that I know that when the funding usually comes out and we get the number, quickly people compare it to last year. Remember that in our number last year was just over $900,000 subsidy, which was year 20 on the middle school. So that will be gone because that payment's gone. Also, the expense is gone. But when you look at it and you get nervous and say, oh, geez, we lost or didn't get this, remember that $900,000 is from that debt service on that middle school that's expiring. Just so that at first glance, hopefully we won't panic too much.
Panicking already, but I appreciate all your hard work putting the budget together. Questions for Jeremy?
I do.
Marie?
Any more info on what you've been working on in the formula adjustment for poverty?
Yeah, so those bills have been submitted by local and state representatives. They will go through the hearing process. I do not know when that's scheduled yet. It does seem like Maine Superintendent's Association is going to be behind in supporting the weighted adjustment for the poverty one, which would be very significant for us. One of the pieces that we will have to work on and advocate for is that unless there are additional funds put into the state budget, and we've asked what that calculation would do if they needed additional, there definitely will be some kind of more, there'll be greater conversation, because if that is a shift of what is the right thing to do for the kids in our state. And we'll talk a little bit about spending in a minute on a chart that I want to draw some attention to that I think will be some good points for us to make to legislature.
Thank you.
Other thoughts or comments for Jeremy? Thank you, Marie, for the question. Okay. Committee reports. I believe we have a report from curriculum. Is that correct? I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but if you want to lead off, Michelle?
We just met, if you think of anything, Chad, just fill in. We just met, we talked about the fall NWEA scores and kind of looked through those and some trends, so we're starting to look at those. And trying to think what else we looked at today. There was something else on the agenda that we did. Oh, we talked about CDT, so the curriculum development teams, is that what it stands for? The different teams reported out a little bit on what they are looking at, math, ELA, ML, science, and social studies. So we're kind of looking at what each of those groups are looking at as well. Is there anything, Chad, I forgot?
No, you covered it. Thank you.
Any other committees that have met since last meeting that want to make a report? Marie?
Sorry. The evaluation committee will be meeting in executive session at the end of this evening, and looking to wrap up and finalize that process.
Great, thanks for your work leading that. Any others? Okay, great. That takes us to new business, a couple of, I think, reports, and then a couple of items that need action. Item A, Literary Professional Development and Grant Award. That looks like a nice new opportunity. Jeremy, want to tell us more?
I'd ask Mandy to come up and provide a highlight on that.
Evening. The Maine Department of Education offered a literacy grant or literacy learning opportunity this summer that many of our staff have participated in. They have since put out a second round of funding, allowing small cohorts within each school to apply. Biddeford Primary School was awarded this opportunity for 3 individuals to participate in the professional development, and it's based on the science of literacy. Again, our staff members of Nate Moeller, Allison Mills, and Julie Montalbano will participate in this cohort structure. They'll meet monthly. They'll engage in the professional development learning through the AIM module literacy pathways, and then they will be awarded a $5,000 award to determine how they are going to utilize those funds, probably in the areas of intervention for our students at the primary school. When this grant was offered, it was only open to our youngest learners. It's my understanding that another round of grant funding will come out for our IS students, and perhaps even forward to applying for those as well.
Thank you, Mandy. That's great news. So this is the first year that we've won this award, correct?
Correct. So it's just dual money that the state had left over in the literacy initiative that they put forth.
Good. I'm glad that we're able to take advantage of it. Questions or thoughts from the committee? Lisa?
Okay, so they're participating in this and then they get the grant? Is that what I'm understanding?
Correct. So they have to go through the individual professional development
And
as a
is it
team.
like courses that they're
Yes.
taking online?
There's
and-
online asynchronous courses coupled with monthly professional development meetings with representatives from every school that was awarded.
And it's the little grade levels, so that would be BIS or BPS, is that what? They weren't eligible for this, and so what this will do is help with literacy, right? It's not gonna actually be a program of curriculum or anything like that, it's just training these people, and then they hopefully get awarded the 5,000, and then there's more training, or what happens with that? Right.
Share that with their colleagues as well.
Yeah, so they can figure out how to best spend this money. And you said the best would be, what did you say? Thank you, yeah.
I suspect the group will come together. $5,000 isn't going to get them
That's what I was gonna
a
say,
whole-
because once that's gone, it's gone. And so whatever they implement or use, once the money's gone, then what? Everything just stops happening?
Well, they have the learning, and hopefully they'll have the learning that they'll be able to share with their colleagues from that point
And
forward.
keep it going?
Correct, right. So it's a sustainable utilization of information that they've obtained.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Marie?
So, thank you for the clarification on that. So basically, they're going to be getting a skill set. They're looking to do more on the intervention side. Hopefully, for the sake of continuity, consistency, and flow, we get it at our next 2 levels. But they may have a different focus to use it for.
Correct. So each team is going to be able to determine within reason how to best utilize the funds, depending upon what the needs are within their building.
And this skill set that they're going to be acquiring will add to continuity and flow and consistency of what we currently have.
And many of our teachers have already participated in this professional learning module that took place this summer. 9 modules, over 40 hours of professional learning, and this one is only focusing on the first 3.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ms. Sear. Appreciate that. Exciting new program. Under item B, Jeremy, I know you'd like to take us through the cost per student analysis.
Yeah, the updated, a few months ago, I had shared that piece from the old numbers as from 2022-23. I was able to get the spreadsheet from the DOE the other day about new cost analysis, looking at what districts spend locally compared to what they other on a per pupil cost, broken down by, as you know, the lines in the budget that we have to vote on: regular education, special education, other instruction, student support, system admin, school admin, et cetera, and how we compare to other schools in our area. As you can see, we spend here below the state average on those pieces, and what those factors and what it would look like if we were spending at that level of those other communities. We know that as we go into budget time, it's always difficult for our residents and for the city as we think of all the needs that we have. But what I really is more important to me on this, because I'm going to continue to need your help as that same bill, Marie, that you talked about makes its way through legislature, is that when you look at a community like Biddeford, and we know that a classroom is made up of 60% of its students that are economically disadvantaged, and you looked at the city, when you look at your adjusted state share, which means how much money comes from the state to support local education, taxpayers paying 60%, state's paying 40%. And you have a high level of need. And then you look at a community like Cumberland North Yarmouth, which is RSU 51, which in the paper the other day has the highest median income of any place in the entire state, has a poverty rate of 3.4%, but gets more state funding than you guys do in Biddeford. And that's all based off, I understand it, property valuation. We know that the closer you are to water, that's typically higher. But this is an inequity. And that is what we're hoping to fix through the weighted count, is to realize that while all kids in poverty deserve financial backing behind them, there's very much a difference between going into a classroom and having one student or two students living in poverty versus walking into a classroom where 13 or 14 of those may be living in poverty. That's a very different environment for our classroom teachers. And so as we prepare the budget and we prepare the spending levels and think about those things and think about programming and options for our students, we have to take this into consideration. And so that is why I will need your voice in Augusta, or writing testimony that we can help you with about some of these changes to bring more state dollars to schools or communities like ours. So I'm happy to take any questions. I know we're going to talk a lot about this in the future, but I feel like these funds and these bills are going to move a little bit faster this year, because I know Ryan's very organized and he's not allowing a lot of the bills that just have a placeholder. And so I think things maybe will move a little bit faster at the state level this year.
John?
So then the first question would be, when you find out when the bills are going to go up, maybe you could get us all together, and we can all go up to testify, take a bus up, a van up or something. Somehow all get up to testify. I think that makes a big difference. I know I did it when we were on the city side a couple times.
And I'll send something out to you, because there is a new service, and I believe it's available to school committee members as well through MSBA, with like the text alerts on certain important bills that, you know how you get them on your phone? MSBA is offering that as well as a service, and I can see if I can get you, I'll send you the info how to sign up on that. But yes, this one and the homeless bill are obviously two very big ones for us, and having people come that day and be part of that would be really, really exciting.
And then just the numbers, you know, they could say we're low and we don't pay enough, but if you gave us the same funding that the state gave some of the other communities, we'd be over the state average, if it was weighted differently. So, I mean, the way I look at this is, it's not that Biddeford isn't supporting the school system in some sort of way. It's the state isn't supporting it totally neither.
Again, if you had another 10% on your funding coming from the state, so that, let's say it was a 50-50 share in this scenario.
How much is it supposed to be?
Well, we know that special education is supposed to be 40% at the federal level, and they're spent,
15?
and it's more like 10 or 11.
Okay.
That again, if you just received another 10%, you know, actually it's more like 20% to get up to that piece.
Yeah.
Again, what would you do with another $2 million in state funding? It would be fairly significant.
Oh, yeah, it would help on the tax side.
Correct. or new programming, one or the other.
That's what it is.
Thanks for your continued beating the drum on this, Jeremy. It's important. We got to get out in front of the Augusta people, and we're laying the groundwork for that. Other thoughts or comments on this? Okay. Very good. This takes us to the next item, approval of shared service contract 2025-2027 SACO.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by John, seconded by Marie. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? And that is unanimous. Thanks for the work committee on that one. Thank you for your leadership on that, Jeremy. Okay, now we have a series of second readings related to policy updates and changes. We'll go through them one by one here. Item D is a second reading of policies to remove from the table, which is BEA and KI.
Just a point of order. We removed them from the table last time, and I had a first reading, so this is just the second reading. That, the rest of that part don't need to be there anymore.
Yeah, that carried over from the last meeting, so this is just a second reading.
of
It's,
BEA,
yep.
Kyle.
Yes, so let me start over. Item D, second reading of policies BEA and KI.
I apologize, I need to catch up here. So we are removing, to remove from table.
It already has
We
been
did that
removed at
last
the
time.
last meeting.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
we're
wasn't-
removing it off the agenda.
We're removing it off the agenda.
Yes.
So the agenda will be updated for our minutes next week, or next meeting. Just want to make certain I'm tracking this.
Say that again?
Right now, the agenda says, second reading of policies to remove from table, but you guys already removed from
We
the
did
table.
it the
So,
last meeting.
so
This will
that,
be the second reading of
Yeah,
the
we,
policy.
okay,
last meeting, we took it off the table, and we had the first reading.
okay, just want to make certain
One
I'm
in
tracking.
opposition, that was me.
Okay, and I wasn't here.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
that's all right. So we'll be looking for a motion in a second on this one.
So moved.
All right.
Second.
By Michelle, seconded by Marie. Any discussion on these two? John?
So I'll be voting against it again. I knew we had executive session the last time, and this time it's in Biddeford, so I'm not so worried about the time constraints, but just, you know, posting, that little post on the bottom, I just, I don't, how many has put that on the bottom of their emails, I mean, the bottom of their Facebook pages or whatever else?
You're talking about the email.
Yeah, well, the post, if you post something on Facebook, whatever, you're supposed to put that little thing. So I'm assuming everybody has done that already. That's up here, you know, so that you have that, you know, on the bottom of your Facebook pages. So I'm not big on having a policy just to have a policy. So I'll be, because I don't think we follow a lot of this stuff, so I'll be voting against it. That's all. Randy asked me last time why I voted against it, and that was one of the reasons I voted against it.
Can I add? to-
Chad.
Yeah, I also will be voting against it, and the reasons mirror what John just said, as well as it seemed to be, there were blanket statements in there about anything related to the school. And there are some things that I think, yes, if I say, I don't want to give an example, but there are situations, whether it's traffic or something near a school, that per the policy would require that statement to be added to the post. And I view it, and I think I brought this up last time, I view it as a way for the administration to catch someone if they had an issue with that person later. They can point to an instance where they may or may not have made a comment about something related to the school and point to, you didn't add this particular statement in your Facebook or your email, that's a violation, and now there's disciplinary action to follow up. So that's why I'm voting against it.
Okay, anything further? Michelle?
So I believe we addressed some of that when we changed the policy, and Chris, I'm going to ask if you remember, because I don't have that with me. Do you remember exactly what we changed? Do you have that paperwork? You don't have the markup either, okay. Okay. I don't know if I have it with me. Marie, do you, because we discussed it last time. Megan very eloquently said it, and I don't have it in front of me. But we did address some of that.
Should we table it again to get further clarification?
Depends if you got enough to vote on it, you got it.
To be honest, regardless of what it says, I'm going to vote against it. So it doesn't matter.
And me too, it's not just for that one article, it's the stuff up above it also. You know, we've got to follow everything. If we're going to have a policy, we as a board need to follow everything that's on that list. So,
All right, committee, anything further? All right, let's go to the vote and see where things land. All those in favor? And those opposed? So I think we had 2 in favor and 4 opposed. So the motion fails. And Policy Committee, I suspect you'll be looking at that one again and seeking to revise it further.
Marty, can I just ask, that was just BEA we voted on, or KI as well? It
That
just
was-
BEA, right?
well,
That
the way
was-
that motion was.
It was
for
both of them.
Both
Right.
together,
Okay.
yep.
Okay.
So I think the direction would be if the committee, Policy Committee wanted to revisit both of those policies, maybe bring just one of them back, that would be a good way to do it. Incorporate some of the concerns of the members who voted against it, or bring them back individually, whatever your sort of thought or direction would be. And thanks for your work on it to date, and Chris, maybe you'll have a chance to loop back in with the Policy Committee, and we can capture some of those revisions that were discussed at the last meeting. So we'll go to item E. This is the second reading. Again, it's 2 policies together. Second reading of policies to strike EFC and EFCR.
So moved.
Second?
Moved by John, seconded by Marie. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? That one is unanimous. Item F is a group of 5. If
You're going to take them as a group, because I'll be voting one against one. I don't know how everybody else is going to vote, but.
If it's the committee's pleasure to take them one by one, say, why don't we do that then, John? Thanks for the heads up. Let's start with the second reading of the policy to adapt IJNDE, academic integrity, use of AI.
So moved.
Second?
Moved by John, seconded by Marie. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? And anyone opposed? That is 5 in favor, and Chad is opposed. Okay? Second reading of the policy to adapt IJNDE-R, staff and student use of generative AI administrative guidelines.
So moved.
Second?
Moved by John, seconded by Marie. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? And anyone opposed? Chad is opposed. And let's get to item KB, parent involvement in education.
So moved?
Moved by Marie,
Second?
seconded by Michelle. Any discussion? Chad?
Real quick, before I started on the school board, I guess I'm wondering where the genesis of this came from. Because before I started on the school board, I was told by numerous staff members within the district that we didn't want to unfairly burden some students that may not have had parental figures at home with homework or other aspects of curriculum. And so I'm just curious where this stands in light of that argument, if we are trying to make a policy that is not demanding, but it is describing mechanisms and relationships that not all of our community can uphold or be involved in. And so I'm just curious where it came from, what the purpose of it was, and what we wanted to get out of it as a committee.
Chris, you want to give us any background on this one?
Thank you for the question. Starting in 2001 or 2002, when the No Child Left Behind Act was passed and schools started receiving Title I funding, a requirement of the federal government in exchange for receiving those funds was to have what's called a parent involvement or a parent impact policy that the board had to adopt. And that basically meant that parents had to be stakeholders in the room when it came to submitting plans to the federal government and saying how you plan to spend those federal dollars. This board currently has on the books a parent involvement policy for each and every one of our buildings that receives Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV, or Title V funds. The Maine School Boards Association, to which you pay dues, recommended this policy be adopted by school boards this year in response to concerns that the onus was really placed on the schools to educate the child and do, as this board has I think rightfully contemplated in public several times, much more in many cases than the parents. And this was sort of a response to parents saying, well, you're a partner, and so we'd ask you to be at one of these meetings. We'd ask you to engage in parent-teacher conferences. We'd ask you to be helping to hold your kids accountable when there's schoolwork to be done and those sorts of things. And so this isn't something that Mandy and I whipped up or the board conjured, the subcommittee conjured. This was just a recommendation from the MSMA. So the committee reviewed it, felt comfortable bringing it to the full board for a vote, and that's how we got here.
Questions for Chris, thoughts, committee? Chad?
Just curious how this relates to other arguments or points that I've heard brought up at this committee on some of our students don't have parents or a family at home to help with these discussions. So I guess I would ask again, what policies do we have on the books that this is either augmenting or making better, or can we just rely on the policies that we have on the books to date?
Yeah, that's a good question. I welcome anybody who participated in that subcommittee meeting to sort of speak up on that. The existing policies, Chad, if you scroll to the bottom, page 2, I think there's like 7 other policies that are cross-referenced that this would essentially augment, not replace. But anyone else on the committee who wants to speak to that? My purpose on the committee is to keep track of changing laws and MSMA, MSBA policies and bring them forward and present them either with suggested edits or, and we're pretty candid on committee, like, hey, I marked this one up, or Drummond Woodson marked this one up, or we're just giving this to you, as written by MSMA. This is as written by MSMA. So I don't have any personal feelings about it, Chad, just bringing it to the, yeah. I don't know if Michelle or Marie, you were in that meeting, or
You guys, I'm not on that
Lisa.
committee, but, so you're saying MSMA, this is their policy really that we just took and said, we're gonna adopt this policy. And in essence, it's saying that we're hoping parent involvement occurs.
Yeah.
And you can't force people to participate in their child's education, but at least we have a policy that says, show up, help with homework and all that. It's kind of strange to read it, because it's like, did you say this is something from No Child Left Behind, that schools had to develop policies on telling parents what they need to do?
no, on requiring schools to involve parents in decision-makings for how federal funds were invested in schools, Lisa.
Right,
Yeah.
but in the past, parents just kind of were involved, I guess, and then they weren't, and some aren't, and still, so the policy isn't forcing parents to really do anything. It's just, how could we enforce a policy if we find out a parent is not showing up to meetings or not participating in their child's education? Does the school have any authority to say, we have a policy and you didn't do this, so this is what happens?
Yeah, I think sometimes we hear from parents and, if a child isn't being successful and that's a result of chronic absence or it's
Right.
a result of the child not completing required work, especially at like the high school level, that tends to kind of come back to Martha or the teacher. I think I'm making an assumption that MSMA would sort of say, well, you could use this to buttress your position. I'm a little bit surprised on the coding that this is in the K section of the manual and not
Yeah.
the A section, because this is almost like a board philosophy.
It is.
That
That's what I
fits
was
better with
thinking.
like A, B, you know what I mean? So like if I didn't code it, MSMA codes it, but if I was coding it, if I was Charlotte Bates at MSMA, I'd put this in the A section, because really what you're doing is saying, we believe that we have an obligation to educate kids, and we believe that parents and guardians also have an obligation to be part of educating their kids.
That's our belief.
Yeah, so the question before the board is whether or not you want to espouse that belief. How enforceable this is, I
Yeah.
don't know. Chad's question about what about parents, what about kids who are unaccompanied homeless youths, for example, or parents who are in adoptive or foster care situations and don't have parents, one option would be send it back, and we can look at, do we say caregiver instead of parent?
Right.
Or something along those lines, or not. It's your policy, it's your board.
One final question. Is the grant or this No Kid Left Behind portion, is this contingent on us doing this?
No,
or-
Chad,
Okay.
the cross-reference policies at the bottom of the
below.
page that say like Title I,
Okay.
those are required.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
If you don't have those, Chad, we can't take federal money. Yeah.
John?
So, you said earlier about coding it differently.
Yeah.
So would that be your recommendation that this should have been coded differently?
Absolutely. I never make recommendations about coding to the full board, though. Like, we
Okay.
talk about it internally maybe
Yeah.
a little bit. That's the board's prerogative, John. You can put this policy anywhere you want.
I mean, because more of a philosophy would be okay with me,
Yeah.
but more of a policy would not be okay with me.
Yeah, again, I'm not Charlotte Bates, but I'd put this with AB and
Yeah.
merge it as the board's philosophy. And if you want to send it back to committee, we can Frankenstein a version and present that to you, if you think it
So I'll make a
benefits.
motion to table it back to committee.
And I'll second that.
It's been moved
Can I-
to
yeah.
table it back to committee by John and seconded by Marie.
No, Lisa.
Seconded by Lisa. Thank you. All those in favor?
I had a question. Sorry.
No question.
Can I ask a
We
question?
have a discussion on a tabling motion.
I just want to make sure if we're going to table it, that I know what we're bringing back. So we're talking about maybe possibly recoding it, and also maybe looking at the term of parent or caregiver, or does that capture everything, the
That's what
questions
I'm
everybody
writing.
has? Okay, thank you.
That's a clarification. That's good. I appreciate that. All right, all those in favor again? of The tabling? Okay, no one has opposed. That's unanimous.
Thank you.
Good discussion. Thank you, Chris. Good discussion, committee. And I think we'll be making our policies better. Second reading of policies to adopt KBA, home visit policy for school district employees.
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Michelle, seconded by Marie. Any discussion on this one? John?
So how often do we do home visits? I'm not too keen on this idea of home visits, based on security and everything else. I mean, I see some of the stuff that goes out to the fire department or police department, and it'll say caution, and it's because of bed bugs and everything else that they're going into. So sending staff into that, and I'm sort of curious, how are we going to prevent, are we sending them with tie-back suits? I mean, I've got all sorts of issues with sending
we have-
staff into homes.
Okay, yeah, so we have lots of principals in the room, John.
Yeah.
I'm going to look to them, I say daily. In one of our schools, like as part of our truancy protocols for kids who aren't showing up to school,
But that's a truant's officer, right?
the Biddeford Police Department, School Department do not have a truancy
We do not.
officer.
Okay.
No, those are resiliency
We need-
coordinators generally, sometimes principals in each building.
Okay. If you're gonna go knock on the door for the kid, but I don't see anybody going into a house. Do we go into the,
Speak to how, Martha?
Come on, Martha.
They do.
I don't do them, John,
Megan
so I'm
said she
going to
does
call
too.
up someone who does.
Megan does it
Yeah.
all the time.
today's world, I don't think that's such a good idea.
I can speak to BHS, and in my previous role as a social worker within the district, we do them almost daily. We have several students in truancy protocols that will not come outside of the building, that we have our resiliency. We always go in teams of 2. We don't send one person individually. If we go in the house, we talk about not sitting on furniture. We talk about protocols to go around it, but there are some kids that literally will not get out of bed unless there is an employee from the school department standing in the living room waiting for them to take them to school. So we've done it for years. I mean, I've been in thousands of apartments and buildings in this district, and I think it's one of the things that we've seen really be successful. Now, we don't go into all apartments. For many, we'll be out on the sidewalk. We'll text the parent. They'll open the door and they'll say they'll be right out, and we wait for them on the curb. But I know at the high school, it's a very, very common practice that we do this.
Okay, so this is a brand-new policy for something we've been doing for years.
Let's
Just
speak to
trying
the,
Trying to relate to everything.
So, John, I think the staff members in our buildings that do the lion's share of these visits are resiliency coordinators. and I meet with those folks periodically. And they had several questions about indemnification, about use of vehicles, about transporting of students.
So do
And a
I.
lot of those pieces are addressed in different policies that the board has that are public facing, but then like our insurance policy that isn't necessarily public facing. So I just contacted Charlotte at MSMA and said, hey, do you guys have a sample policy about home visits? Because everybody was doing it a little bit differently, and Martha had one set of protocols in place, and maybe Lynn's was a little bit different at BIS. They sent us this sample. I don't believe, Michelle and Marie, that we marked up much, if anything, on this sample. This is pretty much boilerplate MSMA.
So do they use their own personal vehicles, or are they using a school vehicle?
So you have a policy that allows staff to use their own vehicles to transport students. And we ensure that as well.
So we pick up the insurance for that when they're transporting a student.
There are exceptions, John. So if I was transporting a student and I was intoxicated, that would be negligence, and I wouldn't be indemnified by the district for that. If I was transporting a student and I got in an accident and I and the school department were sued and I was not negligent, I could be personally liable for a tort claim up to $10,000, but the school department's legal representation would also represent me without me bearing the cost, but I could still bear the liability, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
So, yeah.
Chad?
I just wanted to make a comment, John. The one thing that I believe I read, but I can't find it right now, is that it is at the discretion and
Yeah.
it needs to be approved by the principals, which is
Sounds
a
like the
good
principals are
stopgap.
going.
Yeah.
So if the principals are going, does that mean Jeremy, or when you guys are approving the principals going? Because they shouldn't be able to approve themselves.
Well, they don't call me on every one. I would say that I would want them to do that because they struggle so hard. I mean, when you think about a kid that's missing school, at the end of the day, not only does it impact the school, but it impacts the class and the teacher on those pieces about makeup work, those types of things. It's been a long time now since I was a principal, but I was in my car every single day as a principal, every single day, going, picking up kids, knocking on doors, making sure that, again, all of the things that we do as schools to make sure that kids are here because, it's no different than any other situation. If you're not present and you're not there to get some of that stuff, it makes it very difficult for us to do the work on that. So, and I have a spouse who does this every day as well. Jump in the car, make sure kids are there, make sure they're home. And sometimes it doesn't just stop with coming to school. Sometimes it's making sure that kids can go to a practice or get home from a practice or do some of those pieces.
I know Sweetser does a lot of that too. They if they're on their caseloads or whatever, they pick them up and transport them around. I didn't know the school did it also.
All right, committee, any further thoughts or comments on this one? Okay, are we ready to vote? All right, voting now on KBA home visit policy for school district employees. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, we have 5 in favor and John opposed. And the last of this particular policy update group, second reading policy to adopt KEB, complaints about school personnel.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Marie, seconded by Michelle. Any discussion? I saw John and then Chad.
I'll go Chad.
Chad and then John.
Just quickly, it talks about disputes being handled at the lowest level possible, and I totally agree on that. The concern would be that everything has to go through the superintendent, and if there are issues, not saying that there are, but if there is for some reason the desire not to go through the superintendent, the person with the complaint has no recourse. They can't come to us directly through the chair. They have to go through, at least the way it's written, they have to go through the superintendent first. And so I would recommend making that a little clear. Anyone should be able to come to the chair of this board and say, I have a problem that we want to discuss.
Can I ask a question? So are you saying,
Michelle.
'cause there's a section in there specifically dealing with complaints, if there were a complaint against the superintendent, how to handle it, but you're saying just somebody that doesn't want to go through.
Say if it's someone on his staff, and they don't want to go to him because they're his staff. So they should have the flexibility to come to us or to the chair to ask for discussion.
Comments, Chris?
Yeah, so Chad heard, and that is something that we did modify in this draft. If you look at step 3, the operative word is may, so the complaint may be presented to the superintendent. It's not required to be presented to the superintendent. The reality is that the lion's share of complaints that come to principals are usually about student conduct, and if those remain unresolved, and like, a parent isn't happy with how Martha handled X situation in the hallway, the phone rings in our office, and either Mandy, Jeremy, or I will sort of pick it up. So I would read that a little different, but if you, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess that is if the complaint is about the superintendent. But if the complaint is about, if there's someone else in the district that may or may not have a good relationship with the superintendent, I guess I'm reading it a little differently. I'll take the action to reread it, but that would be my concern.
Okay, I just have, wait, maybe I'm reading it wrong. John?
Go ahead, Lisa. Oh, John, and then Lisa,
So
sorry.
my
John.
question was, are we going to enforce the issue of making sure people follow those procedures? Because on some of it, I mean, I think they should be starting at the lowest level. And if they start jumping past that, we should be saying, no, you need to go back to that piece of the puzzle first. So we're not skipping over the principal and going directly to the superintendent or going directly to the board. So,
And that's one of the reasons the board has an org chart, John.
Yeah,
And,
I know.
And I think it's a very human tendency. Everybody always wants number one, right?
exactly.
Everybody
It's
always wants Jeremy, right?
Yeah.
And
They
one of the things that Carrie Edgerton does very well when an angry parent calls is said, have you talked to the principal yet? And often that's a little bit of gatekeeping because Jeremy wasn't there. Jeremy doesn't know the kid. Jeremy doesn't know the parent necessarily. And that is, we believe that that lowest level is the appropriate place for most of our routine complaints to be handled.
Okay, thank you. Good discussion. Other thoughts or comments? Lisa, sorry.
And so, if I'm reading it right too, like step 4, if the complaint remains unresolved, that, at the superintendent level, the person making the complaint may contact the school committee chair, right? So, if they're not happy with what he said, they could contact myself or Marty, and we could add it to the agenda to have a discussion about it. Does it have to be sequential? Like, can they, like, that's what you're hoping for, that, like, they're not gonna just say, I don't wanna go to him because I know what he's gonna say, I'm just gonna go right to the chair.
Yes, with your permission, Lisa, I'd editorialize a little bit here. This is an MSMA sample. I cannot believe that they countenance step 4. And I made that editorial note when we met as a subcommittee. I think it's wildly inappropriate. You already have a policy that prohibits making complaints about public officials in public session. So the idea that someone could go to the chair or the vice chair and say, I've got an unresolved complaint and I want to make a personnel grievance essentially in public session. That's what we have.
That wouldn't happen, though, I would think, right, because we can't do
Yeah.
that.
Well,
So
it's
we-
discretionary in this case.
Right, so
Yeah.
we'd have to say, we'll add it to the agenda as an executive session.
Executive session.
Yeah.
I was very surprised, MSMA, who represents you.
Yeah, because
Included.
normally those type of conversations are in executive session.
And you have another policy, I can't remember the code, but it's,
Yeah,
you're not allowed to discuss personnel matters in public.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to bargain in public.
that's why I was asking about that in particular, and usually, if they've already talked to Jeremy and did not get whatever answer or resolution they wanted, I suppose, what are you saying? We could add it to the agenda and put it in executive session, have a conversation.
And often when people get to Jeremy and they don't get what they want, they stand here.
They what?
They stand here.
Yeah, but when they're standing there, we can't really say anything
Correct.
back at
Yep.
that point, we just listen.
Yeah.
And then we
Yep.
go to him after the meeting and say, what the heck's going on? Yeah. Okay.
What's the other thoughts or comments from the committee? What's the committee's pleasure here?
Why don't we-
Amy, do you want to work this one further at the policy committee, given that comment, or shall we move ahead with it? Michelle, what is your take?
I think that we were in agreement that there really has to be a hierarchy, and that's why we set this forth, was that it would go to the superintendent first, and that, that it would follow through, that if it wasn't resolved, then they might go to the chair, and that would have to be discussed in executive session. So I think there has to be some kind of hierarchy. So I'm comfortable with it. I don't know about Marie or other questions people might have, but I'm comfortable with that.
And I'm comfortable that there's a hierarchy.
Okay, thanks. Good discussion. And anything further on this one, KB? All righty, all those in favor? And anyone opposed? So we have 4 in favor, 2 opposed, so the motion carries. Committee members Bars and McCurry are opposed. Okay, thank you for the good work. Thanks to the policy committee, and you've got clarity, Michelle, around that tabling. Yep, okay. Great, we got a couple more second readings on field trips that take us to item G, second reading of overnight field trip, Thailand culture and service trip.
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Marie, seconded by Michelle. Any discussion? Lisa?
I actually was hoping whoever this person is in charge of this would come here and have talked about it a little bit more before we do a second reading on it. I know there's a parent meeting tonight. Oh, you're gonna talk? I personally would vote against it tonight, but I would like more information of what is the interest with parents, students, how many are really interested in this, and what are the questions and concerns that we could throw out there, you know?
Martha?
I know there's a meeting tonight with parents, right, regarding
Sure,
this?
parents and students. Yeah, we have 56 people signed up for the meeting tonight.
Okay.
We've had great interest in it. This is another one of our field trips that we do each year. It's a little more of an exotic location compared to the typical France, Italy.
Absolutely is.
We've had some school employees go on a similar trip and highly recommended it. We have a new sustainability club. They've been working closely with Ms. Baranowski, who's the biology teacher and does some of the sustainability work within our school. And so as described in the write-up there, it is a cultural immersion trip as well as working in an elephant sanctuary
Yeah, I read all
to
that.
do some conservation.
I guess I was looking to see the interest and how many were interested. And the other thing is the urgency of the second reading when it's so far away.
Well, EF Tours, they require that that the school board approve the meetings and
Before they start.
recruiting and signing kids up. So tonight we have our first informational meeting. Like I said, there are 56 people in that meeting tonight, or that had signed up as of this afternoon. So there is good interest. Our hope is that we get 18 students, and
That was
we
my next
currently have
question.
double that. We
That was
currently
my
have
next question, like
double
if
that,
you
so-
have 5, it's not gonna be a
No,
trip.
we wouldn't run it if we had
Right.
5. We need to have at least 8, and that would be, for every 8 students, you need 1 chaperone.
And EF Tours is an entity that we're comfortable with?
That's what we've used for years, yep. Yep. We've had several staff members that go as part of their training tours each year. John Edstrom just went on one. Miss Castley did our France trip this year. Our Italy tour last year were all EF tours as well.
Professional tour company, obviously,
Exactly,
sets
yep.
up programs for students.
And they do specific, they do tours for you and I. We could sign up for a tour group, but they do specific to educational groups as well, which are the ones that we use.
Stands for Education First, I think.
I believe you're right.
Yep. Okay. John?
And my concern the last time was just what's going on, and if we monitor it, are they gonna be able to get their money back and everything else? Because I don't wanna say yes today, and, you know, I read some of the stuff where there's travel advisories right now going on over in that particular area. You know, like, if it was today that they were going, I'd be saying, no, definitely not, because they're saying between all the gangs and everything else that's happening, it's not safe, so.
EF Tours is very specific about when they will and will not allow school groups to travel to certain places, and they monitor that regularly.
Okay. I would just like to make sure that that's gonna come back to us, and we're saying thumbs up, it's good to go.
Do you know if the cancellation of a trip would need to be out of the company's concern, or do we have the same equal?
I know that there are
Cause for
parameters
concern.
around each, and there are very specific reasons why you can or cannot cancel. I don't know the specifics. I do know there are some, and there are certain timeframes, like there are milestones. You know, you have to put a deposit, and I believe we have to have a deposit in within the next 6 weeks for those that are interested. And then 6 months from then, 6 months prior to the trip, you have to pay another amount. And each of those milestones, there's an opportunity for an individual to withdraw. I don't know the specifics around when a school can make that choice.
But what a company may perceive as a dangerous situation or uncertain situation, we may have a different view of that for not wanting our students to move through to the end of this process and travel
Sure.
in uncertain circumstances. So, like John, I agree, but I was just wondering with EF Tours, I know a company that we use for DC, like you said, there are milestones and there are particular policies, but what they view for cancellation is sometimes very much different than what a governing board or parents feel.
Right.
So, and just being mindful that we're in a, who knows, day to day.
Other comments or discussion on this one? Michelle?
So building off all that, I guess my question is, if we approve this second reading, there's still a lot of obviously information not available, like how many chaperones we need, who are the chaperones, so will this come back at us then when we get closer to the actual date for us to then decide on it? So like we approve that, yes, we're gonna look into doing this trip, we're gonna let EF Tours start talking about it, but is there another process later, once all this information is filled out and we have numbers?
Because typically we do a 1-2, but this is a 1-2 very early. Is there a 1-2-3 for this one, I guess is what I'm asking. And I think where Michelle is going.
I believe there is. I think there could be a scenario where there wasn't student interest and then the trip wouldn't take place. I don't know. Does Martha, Chris, or Jeremy, anybody know there's not a,
I believe the current policy, and correct me if I'm wrong, but is that there are 2 readings in order to approve an overnight field trip. And it doesn't specify whether it's 12 days in Thailand or whether it's overnight in DC with a group of students. It's 2 readings.
And so, wait, sorry, can I?
Go ahead, Lisa.
Yeah, thank you. So if we approve the second reading, that means it's a done deal and it's going forward.
I think
As
conditional
far
Unless
as I know, yes.
Yes.
conditioned on student interest, is how I
Student interest
understand it.
and parent.
Student
yeah,
interest
right.
and safety.
Right, and then,
Parent safety.
and safety.
Yeah, it's parent,
by
ultimately,
EF.
it's parent choice, whether a student,
Of course. I
Goes
mean, you
or
said you
not.
had like 50 parents here tonight or people. That's quite an interest,
Right.
right?
That sounds like there is very strong parent interest. Okay.
They also give a refund too, it says, right in there. I was just looking on their website that if there's a travel advisory issued within 30 days of travel's departure.
That gives us more comfort. That's good. Good research, Jeremy. Okay.
And it's the formal travel warning by the U.S. Department of States and issued 30 days of the traveler's departure. Looks like all that's not refundable is a $95 fee.
Okay, other thoughts or comments? All right, all those in favor? And those opposed? Okay, all right, that's unanimous. Good discussion. Sounds like a great opportunity, and we'll look forward to learning more about it. Okay, public participation, 3 minutes, any item, anyone?
Oh, got H.
Oh, geez, I'm missing ahead. I'm missing the marching band, which is really too bad because the marching band is wonderful. Second reading of overnight field trip, regional marching band
So
show.
moved.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Moved by John, seconded by Marie. Any discussion on this one? Okay, all those in favor? And that's unanimous. That's great. That's coming right up on Saturday, February 15th. I know that the 15th is a Saturday because I know that Friday, the 14th, is Valentine's Day. So, and I should remember to make reservations this year. Public participation, 3 minutes, any item. Anybody here wishing to comment on anything on or not on tonight's agenda? Okay. Communications from the board. Marie.
I happened to be walking at Biddeford Pool. I shared this with Jeremy. And Mandy, probably a heads up for you and maybe Martha. I happened to talk with the superintendents at Abernathy Golf Course, and they gave me a couple of their cards. They actually offer kind of like a STEM-like, not a program, but kind of like a field trip where kids can go learn the math and science and maintenance of soil testing, moisture in the ground, like how they use math to set pins and et cetera. And I believe it's like free of charge, but I am going to get that information to JR, and I'll, photo shoot over, a copy of the contact person. But I figured it's right in our backyard. It presents a particular and maybe, even Paulette's kids, even an opportunity for someone kind of, toying with the idea of going into, management, course management. So I will get that to you. And again, it's right in our backyard, not far to go. Might be a fun opportunity.
Thank you. Other thoughts or comments? I know the superintendent over there, Robert Searle, that's great. It'll be a nice connection. A lot of technology going on there. I have a couple of updates tonight, if I may. Right now, we are in the middle of something called the PIT count, which is the point-in-time count. This is counting the number of homeless individuals actually across the entire United States, which is something run by HUD. We are working super hard to get this right. Last year, we managed to undercount York County significantly. It was similarly cold at the same time last year, and that was a factor. We had a bunch of meetings leading up to this pit count, which is going on today through Friday, and we're going to make super sure that doesn't happen. It's our partners in Sanford are counting, everybody is. So we need to know about every person so that we can get resources for every person. So this might seem like an unusual request, but if you're aware of an encampment or some homeless individuals out there, please get me that information. We'd like to know. And along those lines, this is a mighty cold night, and so look out for your friends and neighbors, and thanks to our partners at Seeds of Hope that we've been so gratified to be able to support as a city. Fun things coming up. 2 things for your calendar, if you would. The first is, as you no doubt know, very regrettably, we lost a Sergeant Jacob Wolterbeek, on his commute home on December 12th. We're doing a fundraiser for the family. We're calling it Mayor's Night Out. It'll be on Wednesday, February 5th. The ask is to literally just go out to eat at participating restaurants. Those restaurants will have a QR code for you to make a small contribution to the family. Sergeant Wolterbeek leaves behind his wife Julie and 3 children under 5, and they need all the support that we can give them. So far, participating restaurants are Sacred Profane, Brickyard Hollow, OG's Sandwich Shop, Bandit Brewing, Super Sub Shop, Fish and Whistle, Batson River, Apero, Pizza by Alex, and the Garden Bar. I think more coming in all the time. And so that's Wednesday, February 5th. Just to make a note to participate, and that is right before Winterfest, which is Saturday, February 8th. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I think this year we'll have the sledding hill and all of the associated activities, even bigger and better this year, and so much free bikes and free pizza and all kinds of good stuff planned for Winterfest on Saturday, February 8th. And that's it from me. I think the next item is executive session. We will not be coming back with no action taken afterwards. So if there's nothing further, I'd entertain a motion for executive
I'll
session.
make a motion to go in executive session for 1 MRSA 40568.
Second?
Moved by John, seconded by Marie to go into executive session for 1 MRSA 4056A. All those in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you, board. We'll adjourn to the classroom.